Welcome to Elderly Healthy Aging 365.
Your fridge is poisoning you, Ray. Here's how to stop it.
Did you know that nearly 48 million Americans get sick every year from food-related illnesses, and over 3,000 of them die? Many of them are seniors. According to the CDC, older adults are significantly more at risk because their immune systems aren't as strong as they once were. What's really alarming is that many of these illnesses start right in the refrigerator. That's right. The fridge, the place you think is safe for storing food, can actually be turning some everyday items into health hazards. In fact, new studies show that improperly storing certain foods in the fridge can increase the risk of food poisoning, nutrient loss, and even cause dangerous chemical reactions. And the worst part is that most people don't know anything about it. If you toss certain fruits, vegetables, or pantry items into the fridge without a second thought, you could be setting yourself up for disaster. The foods at the top of this list are particularly concerning. They not only lose their nutritional value, but can also develop harmful compounds when chilled. So stick with us until the end, because what you learn could save your health or even your life. Before we begin, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Number 9. Potatoes. Let's start with a staple food in the kitchen that most people throw into the fridge without thinking twice. Potatoes. But here's the shocking truth. In fact, chilling potatoes can make them dangerous. When you store raw potatoes at cold temperatures, something unusual happens at the cellular level. The starch in potatoes begins converting to sugar much faster than normal. That may not sound like a big deal, but this is when things get scary. Later, when you cook or bake those chilled potatoes, especially at high temperatures, this sugar can combine with amino acids to form acrylamide, a chemical compound linked to cancer in animal studies and currently being researched for its effects on humans. But it doesn't stop there. The texture of potatoes also changes when kept in the fridge, becoming gritty, mushy, and often darkened, which is a sign of oxidation and nutrient loss. Instead of being the nutritious warm dish we love, chilled potatoes will turn into a mushy, sweet mixture that can be toxic when cooked. If you've ever wondered why your baked potatoes taste unusually sweet or why the texture seems off, it might be due to the fridge. Potatoes should be stored in a cool, dark, and dry place, not in a cold and damp environment. This helps them keep their firmness, flavor, and safety for eating. So, if you have a bag of potatoes in your fridge right now, it's time to take them out before they become a health hazard disguised as dinner. Number 8. Bread. Let's talk about bread, a staple and nutritious food that many seniors always keep on hand. You might think that putting a loaf of bread in the fridge will keep it fresh longer, but in reality, that's one of the worst things you can do. The scientific basis behind this phenomenon is retrogradation, a fancy way of saying that the starch molecules in bread begin to crystallize when exposed to cold temperatures. This doesn't take weeks. It happens almost instantly. What does that mean for you? Your soft, fluffy bread will spoil much faster in the fridge than at room temperature. That's right. The fridge doesn't keep your bread fresh. It accelerates staling. While you may not always see the difference right away, you will definitely taste it. The texture becomes hard, dry, and crumbly, making toasting difficult and sandwiches less enjoyable. But here's where it gets worse. When bread loses moisture in the fridge, it becomes a breeding ground for mold when you take it out. Mold spores thrive in uneven moisture during the cooling and reheating process. And moldy bread isn't just disgusting, it can be dangerous. Certain molds produce mycotoxins, which are toxic compounds that can cause serious health issues if ingested, especially in older adults with weakened immune systems. If you want to extend the shelf life of your bread, freezing is actually a much better option. The freezer prevents the growth of mold and staling without sacrificing the texture of the food. Just slice it ahead of time and thaw as needed. But the fridge isn't the ideal place for your daily bread. Store bread in a bread box or an airtight container at room temperature for a few days, and freeze anything after that. Don't let the cold rob your loaf of its longevity and your health. Number 7 is onions. You might be surprised to see onions on this list, but storing onions in the fridge is a common mistake that can lead to unwanted problems. Onions have a protective, paper-like skin that helps retain moisture and maintain their flavor and crunch. However, when you put onions in the fridge, that delicate balance is completely disrupted. The cold, humid environment inside the fridge causes onions to absorb moisture faster, especially after being cut. This leads to a mushy texture, unpleasant taste, and in many cases, mold growth. But there's a bigger issue here: odor transfer. Onions have a strong flavor, and when chilled, they release sulfur compounds that not only break down faster, but can also seep into other foods stored nearby. Have you ever noticed your butter or fruit tasting a bit oniony? That's not your imagination. The fridge acts like a sponge, soaking up volatile compounds. Another potential danger is bacterial contamination. A slice of onion left in the fridge, even when covered, can become a breeding ground for bacteria. Some food folklore claims that onions can absorb toxins, but this is not scientifically accurate. However, it is true that onions, if not stored properly, especially when exposed to moisture, can harbor harmful bacteria. For whole onions, the best place to store them is in a cool, dark, well-ventilated area, like a pantry. For sliced onions, you should only place them in the fridge when covered tightly and use them quickly, ideally within 1 or 2 days. But if you keep whole onions in the fridge, that's a sure way to spoilage, nutrient loss, and a fridge full of unpleasant onion-flavored surprises. Number 6 is tomatoes. Tomatoes can be one of the most misunderstood foods when it comes to fridge storage. Most people think that putting tomatoes in the fridge will keep them fresh longer, but the truth is that cold temperatures destroy both the flavor and texture of tomatoes. Scientifically speaking, tomatoes are a tropical fruit, and they absolutely hate the cold. When you put a tomato in the fridge, the cold air breaks down the tomato's natural enzymes and halts the ripening process. This ripening process is actually what creates most of the tomato's flavor. Without it, you're left with a watery, bland, mealy fruit that has no taste whatsoever. And don't forget about texture. Tomatoes stored in the fridge lose their firmness and become mushy like rubber. The satisfying crunch and sweetness you expect from a fresh tomato is gone. Even more concerning is the impact on nutrition. Tomatoes are a rich source of vitamin C, but this vitamin breaks down much faster when stored cold, meaning you not only lose flavor but also health benefits. Even the skin starts to wrinkle and shrink when kept too cold for too long, making them look old and less appealing even when they are still relatively fresh. If you've ever sliced a tomato and noticed it leaking juice or looking faded, it's likely been exposed to cold. The best way to store tomatoes is at room temperature, away from direct sunlight, and with the stem side down to retain moisture. If they're overripe, you should use them right away or cook them. Don't toss them in the fridge thinking you're helping. In fact, you're just speeding up their decline. Number 5 is garlic. Garlic is often praised as a superfood packed with sulfur compounds like allicin, which are great for boosting immune health and even lowering blood pressure. But all those wonderful health benefits can quickly vanish, or worse, become harmful if you store garlic in the fridge. Whole garlic can last for several weeks or even months at room temperature, especially when stored in a dry, cool, and well-ventilated place. But when you refrigerate it, the humidity and low temperature can diminish garlic's natural shelf life. Cloves start to sprout early, which not only alters their flavor, but also signals a breakdown of their chemical structure. That pungent, rich flavor turns into something bitter and chewy. Worse yet, sprouted garlic loses most of its allicin content, the key compound that boosts health. But this is the scariest part. Frozen garlic, especially if minced and stored in oil, can become a breeding ground for Clostridium botulinum bacteria, which causes botulism. This rare, but extremely dangerous illness can lead to paralysis or even death if not treated promptly. The FDA has issued warnings about storing garlic in oil without acid or refrigeration measures. However, many people still do this without realizing the risks. Instead of refrigerating garlic, Store whole bulbs in a mesh bag or basket in the pantry. If you store minced garlic, use it right away and soak it in vinegar or lemon juice to reduce the risk of bacterial contamination. But don't let the fridge rob garlic of its benefits or pose a hidden danger to your meals. Fourth, coffee. Yes, believe it or not, coffee makes this list for a very good reason. Coffee beans and grounds are very sensitive to moisture, odors, and light. When you put them in the fridge, you might think you're keeping them fresh, but you're actually making them spoil faster. Coffee has hygroscopic properties, meaning it absorbs moisture and odors from the surrounding environment like a sponge. Inside your fridge, surrounded by fruits, vegetables, and leftovers, coffee starts to lose its aroma and flavor. This will completely ruin the distinctive flavor of the coffee beans, making your coffee taste bland, bitter, or even off. Moisture is the real enemy here. When coffee is exposed to the cold air and humidity, moisture is the real enemy here. When coffee comes into contact with the cold air and humidity of the fridge, water vapor condenses on the surface of the beans or grounds every time you open the fridge door. This leads to clumping, early yellowing, and the breakdown of the essential oils that contribute to coffee's flavor and health benefits, such as chlorogenic acid. These acids are antioxidants that support heart and brain health, but they break down faster in cold and damp conditions. Over time, refrigerated coffee not only tastes bland, but also loses its potential health benefits. Furthermore, moist coffee grounds can lead to mold, especially if stored in a non-airtight container. Instead of storing it in the fridge, keep coffee in an opaque, airtight container at room temperature in a dark cupboard. This keeps your food fresh and safe. Tuesday, darling. This might really surprise you. It's sweet, thick, golden, and looks like it belongs anywhere, including the fridge. But storing honey in the refrigerator is one of the worst things you can do to it. In fact, chilling honey not only ruins its texture, it completely reverses its natural preservation process, making honey one of the few foods in the world that never spoils. When you put honey in the fridge, the cold temperature causes it to crystallize quickly. That means it will become gritty, hard, and nearly impossible to scoop or spread. You might think, oh, that's just a change in texture, right? Not quite. The crystallization process can create air pockets, which then introduce moisture into the container when opened and closed repeatedly. And moisture is honey's enemy. It can lead to fermentation, making honey taste sour and smell unpleasant. Worse, moisture encourages bacteria growth, while honey usually resists this due to its low water content and high acidity. However, when improperly stored, its natural defenses are weakened. Cold weather also slows down the natural enzymes in honey that have antibacterial properties. Yes, chilling honey can actually make it less healthy over time. The best place to store honey is in a tightly sealed jar in the pantry or kitchen cabinet, away from sunlight and high temperatures. That way, it maintains its smooth texture, natural flavor, and all the healing compounds that make it a time-tested remedy. Next up is bananas. Bananas are one of the most popular fruits in the world, especially for seniors, because they are high in potassium and easy to digest. However, refrigerating bananas destroys all their nutritional value. Bananas are tropical fruits, and their internal chemical composition is adapted to warm environments. The fridge, especially before they are fully ripe, when you put them in the fridge, especially before they are fully ripe, the cold will inhibit the enzymes that promote ripening. That means your bananas might never ripen properly. They will be hard, taste bland, and worst of all, their peels will quickly turn a dull gray or black. This discoloration is not just unappealing, it's a sign that cold damage has occurred. Beneath that black skin, the banana often turns mushy in strange patches and has an unpleasant metallic smell. But beyond taste and appearance, chilling also destroys the natural antioxidants found in bananas, particularly dopamine and catechin, which are crucial for brain health and reducing oxidative stress in aging cells. For seniors, these compounds are extremely important. Throwing bananas in the fridge will make them disappear without anyone noticing. Even worse, if the bananas are already overripe when you put them in the fridge, Moisture buildup inside the peel can create a favorable environment for mold to grow, especially around the stem. So instead of extending shelf life, you risk exposure to mold. Bananas should be stored at room temperature, ideally hanging or in a fruit bowl where air can circulate around them. If you have too many ripe bananas, freeze them, peel them, and store them in a container for smoothies or baking later. But please don't chill them hoping they will last longer. In the end, you'll end up with fruit that has lost its nutrients, texture, and purpose. First is olive oil. The most dangerous food to store in the fridge, especially for seniors, is olive oil, a staple that many people rely on for heart health and its many cooking uses. When olive oil is chilled, it undergoes a process called solidification, where the fatty acids crystallize, causing the oil to become cloudy and partially solid. While this physical change is not inherently harmful, the constant temperature fluctuations when taking the oil out of the fridge can cause serious health issues that few seniors realize. Each time olive oil shifts from cold to warm temperatures, its chemical structure is under stress, accelerating the oxidation process, potentially creating harmful free radicals and diminishing the oil's beneficial antioxidant properties. These oxidative changes can turn heart-healthy oil into oil containing compounds that may promote inflammation, which is completely contrary to seniors' needs. What's particularly concerning is that studies show these heat-sensitive oils can contribute to increased arthritis and digestive disorders, which are common conditions among many older adults. Solidification also makes the oil harder to pour, increasing the risk of spills or overuse, which adds unnecessary calories to seniors' diets. In addition to health concerns, the flavor of olive oil is also significantly affected when chilled, as it loses its fruity and peppery notes, which are wonderful additions to the Mediterranean diet recommended for heart health. So instead, store olive oil in a dark glass bottle or metal container in a cool place, away from heat sources like the stove. High-quality olive oil stored properly will retain its health benefits and flavor for up to 2 years after opening. So, here are 9 foods you should never store in the refrigerator. Start by reorganizing your kitchen by food type. Don't put tropical fruits like bananas and avocados in the fridge until they are fully ripe. Store potatoes and onions in a cool, dark place, not a cold and damp area. Bread should be kept at room temperature or in the freezer, but never in the refrigerator. Your honey should be stored in the pantry, and coffee should be kept in a container in a dark cupboard. Garlic and tomatoes. Think of them as powerful, natural ingredients. Store them wisely to preserve their flavor and health benefits. Now, we'd like to hear your thoughts. Are you storing these foods in the fridge without realizing the risks? What changes will you make starting right now? Please share your experiences and thoughts with us in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. Thank you for watching. Music.